Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I the Crafter, and I'm here with another installment of making journals. So let's take this out the way and have a quick chat about what we're working with. Okay, before we even start, I'm going to be using a sewing machine in this video. I know there are those out there who don't have sewing machines, but there are those who do as well. So anything that I sew, you could potentially hand sew, or you could potentially just glue and it'd be equally as good. But I have a sewing machine and I like to use it in my journals, and I think we've already done enough unsewn journals. Now I think we need to combine other skills. So what am I using? Okay, I'm using this product called Kraft-tex. I'll take this out of the packaging in a second for you. Kraft-tex is a man-made product. It's really tough. It's almost like leather, but isn't leather. It's sort of a fabric, but it's not really a fabric. I don't really know how to describe it. Let me have a look on the packaging. Let me just, can I hold that up to you and you can read it yourself? Now, Kraft-tex does come on the roll. However, I find if I buy a roll, it's quite expensive because I really need one or two journal covers. And I found if I buy these, there's 6 sheets in here and they're almost journal size covers. Yes, I do have to trim down my pages slightly, but I would rather do that and have a variety for my one spend than buy an entire roll of just one colour. So if I open this up, I believe this is internationally, let's take this squiggly paper away because it's doing my head in. Right, this is basically the insert, so I'll move it quite slowly. Hopefully you can actually see what this says. I bought mine, where did I buy mine? I don't know whether I bought it on Amazon or eBay. I can't remember, but if you actually just search Kraft-tex, you will find it. You will absolutely find it. So these are the colours that it comes in. So I've got this is Marcella. This one is Blue Iris. This one I believe is Orchid. This one is Greenery. This is Turquoise or Turquoise, depends on how you pronounce it. And this is Tangerine. So, and I believe there are more colours than this in the range. In fact, I'm absolutely certain there's more colours than this in the range. I tend to go for the hand-dyed and pre-washed. There are other varieties, so there's all of that. And actually there must be another colour because this is another colour. There you go. That I can't remember what this one's called. So as you can see, this must have come off a roll and actually cut it to size, whereas these come in one size and they will make a smaller journal, which is what I'm going to do today with you. So as I said, we're going to be sewing, so I now want to choose which of these colours I'm going to use, and I'll show you roughly what I'm going to be using. This is going to be a bit of a stop-start video because, to be honest with you, I'm not going to film me sewing. That's just, I find that very boring viewing because I only have one camera, so therefore you'll see the top of my sewing machine as it sews, or if I do move my camera, all you'll be just seeing is this needle going up and down. So we might as well get rid of that, and I will just explain what I'm going to do and then show you the results of it. So, what have I pulled in? I pulled in a few things. So I have these fabric linen pieces and I've stamped on them. So I might actually put some wording onto the front of my journal, not sure which. I just stamped those on I don't even know whether it's bed sheet or linen or a pillowcase, and I've used archival black. So therefore it's waterproof. Not that I think my journal's going to get wet anyway. My focal point, I've got this fabric. I made a journal, I think it was about 2 years ago for Gail Augustinelli. I made a cover out of this, and when I bought it, I bought quite a considerable amount of it, obviously, because I loved it myself. So I'm going to take out a panel. I'm not sure which panel I'm going to take out, and then I'm going to mount that on something else. Now what I need to remember is that's the size of my cover, so I need to probably be a little more savvy and choose one that's a little bit narrower. Let's have a little look. Pity I've cut. See, I'm hoping to put another backing on this as well, so let's have a look. Now, unfortunately, this fabric doesn't tear because I was like, oh, I'll just tear a piece out. And either I'm feeling very weak today or it just didn't tear. I quite like this bunny here actually, although I'm sure it's a hare and not a bunny. Right, bear with me. I will cut that out in a second or two. So I want that, and I thought I'd like to, because I'm trying to do a spring sort of theme, I quite like this fabric, so I might put that panel onto this fabric. So I've got a little border around, and I've got some vintage lace which I thought might be nice hanging down below the panel. But what I need to do is I need to decide which of these colours I actually want. Now I've sort of got a mind as to what I'd like to do. I mean, I do always have the option of using this one as well, which seems to lend itself really well, but the thing that bothers me is I'm telling you to use this size and then I'm using that size, so I think that's unfair. So anything we can do on one size you could do on the other, but I think I'm going to put that to one side out of temptation's way. So yes, that's spring, but that's a bit too spring for me. I think that would clash with the green. The green is very green. Not sure I like the green. That might work. Actually, I didn't like the orange. Let's put that to one side. Blue is one of my favourite colours, so I would naturally reach for blue, but I'm not really sure that works either. And I quite like this Marcella colour. I think it's between those two, to be honest. Sorry, having a thinking moment. I think we're going with this one. Right, let's clear these other options out of the way. Let's pop that over there. So first of all, I need to get this little sucker out of here. You don't actually need to watch me cutting it, so I'm going to hit pause on you. So here we are back again. I cut it down to roughly, what is it? About 3.5 inches to about 5 1/4, because I think that's pretty much as big as I want to go here. Now, I actually want the edges to be frayed of this. I like frayed and tattered, and because I didn't tear the fabric, I can't get that effect by tearing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrunch it up and actually just roll it in my hands, and what that will do is it will rough up the edges for me. So now when I undo it, I'll have a nice fringy edged piece of fabric that will give it the look that I was looking for. So I'll just pull away the extra strings. Over time and over use, of course, this will get even more fibrous, should we call it. So now what I need to do is, before I use that, by the way, I'm going to be ironing it, so no big panic there anyway. So now that I've got this, I actually think my next step is to, besides getting the threads off here, is to fold this so I have a realistic view of what my piece looks like. So just fold it corner to corner. Now these I believe are machine cut, so I can completely rely on the fact that they've got the right squared edges on them. There you go. I'm just going to push that down with my thumb. I could use a bone folder. I could even come in with the edge of a scissors and run that along the edge. Whatever you have, I'm quite good about just pressing it down with my thumb. So this will eventually go in the middle here. That's fine with me. I'd like this edge to have been a little more tattied. Tattied? What word is that? Tattered. So I could come in and pull some of those threads out, but it doesn't seem to want to pull out too much, but that's okay. As I said, over time, it's going to work its way out anyway. Now, the next thing I wanted to do, and at this moment, I'm just auditioning my pieces onto here. We'll take this in stages as we go along. Now, I liked this colour. Actually, I've got two lots of that. Let's pull this in. So I now want to do a back panel of this. I've got enough pieces. Let me just take the strip off here. I can't remember what I was using this for, but I do know this one tears. So, oops, take the words out of the way so I don't lose them. So that's given me, supposedly, a straight line, because fabric will, or should, naturally tear up its threads. Excuse me, a little bit of dust in my throat there. Yeah, let's pull that in. So I don't need a huge piece of this, so I'm just going to come in. I'm going to give it a bit of a snip there and tear it up a bit. I don't want to tear the whole thing, and I'm going to tear across here. Now I'm probably going to have to tear this down a little bit, but it's easier to tear it down when it's not attached to the whole bulk of the piece. So let's put that to one side. So let's squish this out again. So I've got a feeling that the bottom edge is probably not straight. That's not bad, actually. Not bad at all. I wonder whether I just leave that like that, because as I said, I was thinking about putting something like a little saying or little word on the bottom of there. So we might be doing that. So let's have a quick look at what that would look like on here. Actually, that's not too bad. I'm thinking, originally I was thinking I was going to put a bit of lace down the spine, but I'm quite liking the way that looks actually. And I would be putting book corners on here as well. I did pull in this bit of vintage lace because I thought a little bit of the vintage lace hanging out the bottom might be cute as well. And it might be cute. Can you see that? Yes, you can. Actually, I think I'm going to save the vintage lace because I quite like that, looking like that. So, right, so I've got all of this ready to go. I just want to tear this little bit off a bit here just to get some more threads showing. So I like that old tattied look that I can get by that. The downside is you end up with threads everywhere. I usually go shopping and find I've got threads attached to me, or I've got bits of glue attached to me, or I get funny looks because I've got glitter stuck to my forehead or something when I go to a shop. Yeah, that's kind of normal for me. So, right, well, I'm just thinking about this. What word or words do I wish to put down here? Now, I've got follow your art. I've got keep smiling, which I think might be a bit small, and dream it, wish it, do it, which I do quite like, and I actually quite like that down there. I think we're going to do that one. Right, let's put these to one side so I don't lose them for the next time. Now, my next step is going to be, I need to iron this. And I'm just ironing these pieces of fabric because I want to make sure everything's nice and flat. I know a lot of people don't iron. I do. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I just have to iron. It's just one of the things I do. So bear with me a second. So here we are again, all nicely pressed. Yeah, I know it's probably me, but I have to press stuff. Now, what I'd like to do is, I was thinking I wouldn't like this flat on there. I want to see if I can put something a bit more textural behind it. So I've got some of this wadding or backing that I got off. It was an old quilt that I found and I recycled it. And I took all the backing off, took some doing, taking all the stitching out, I must admit. But I'm thinking I'd quite like a little patch of that behind this. I want it to be smaller than the green. And I don't mind if it's bigger than the hair itself. So let's put that to one side as well. And I just want to trim this down so that when I do sew it on, it's not actually seen. So I think it just needs to have a little bit of a trim off there. Let's just snip that right. I'm going to turn this over just so I can see how much overlap I've got. I think I need to take just a touch more off that actually. Because when it's sewn, I find things move around and I don't really want that happening. Sorry if the sun's getting a bit bright, but you know, sun in Wales doesn't happen very often. I'm going to go with it. So, right, I think that will be placed quite nice. Let's take that little tuft off there because that's just the sort of thing that would pop out and really bother me. So when we've got this on there, that will give just a little bit of texture behind it. And then we've got this on there as well. And then this will come down and overlap both this and it'll go onto here. Now, before I start sewing, I'm going to glue some of these pieces together because I'm going to sew this. And then I'm going to sew the entire thing, I'm going to sew this onto the green, which will then hold the backing as well. I'm then going to sew this onto here. And then the last thing I'm going to do is sew this onto here, because when you need to sew things, you need to remember the layers. If I put that down first of all, if I sewed around the hair, the stitching will go right through the middle of this. Whereas if I sew this on last of all, it's got its own independent block of stitching. So I want to stick this down slightly now. Something to be really aware of, obviously I'm going to be using Fabri-Tac, but Fabri-Tac can soak through thinner fabrics. So what I'm going to do is I just want to hold this in place with the Fabri-Tac anyway. So I'm just going to put, I've got Fabri-Tac coming out. I'm just going to put a few dots, or I would if it's coming out of here. Come on out. Yeah. This is an old Fabri-Tac and I'm getting to the point where I need to switch to the new one, which I have in front of me just in case I hit a few problems here. So all I'm doing is I'm just putting the odd little bits on here just to kind of secure it in place. If you're someone who's into tacking, which I'm not, you could just tack it down and it would be equally as fine. So there you go, just a little bit on that. Get off my fingers here. And then I'm going to put it onto the green this way round so I can actually see that it's relatively centralized. Give it a slight tap down with my hand. Now I only put a little bit on there just to hold this in place, and I'm going to do the same on here as well, or I would if my Fabri-Tac was behaving. We may be going to the other Fabri-Tac in a moment, guys. Again, I just want a little bit on here. I don't want it to show through. I just want little tiny bits just to secure it in place. I could pin it, but I find if I pin it, I then end up with pinholes, which is not what I'm thinking I want. So by just putting a few pieces on there, trying to centralize that all up. So, right, let me talk you through the process, because this is a bit you're not going to see because we're going to be sewing. So I'm now going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew along here, along here, along here, and along here. Then I'm going to stop. I'm then going to put this onto the front cover of my Kraft-tex, and then I'm going to sew along the green edges, and then once that's done I'm going to then sew this into place here. Now I don't want to come too close to this edge because eventually I'm going to sew around the whole journal, so I'm going to make sure that this is pulled in ever so slightly. So I'll be back in a few seconds, but that's the whole process. So here we are, we've got it all sewn in now. So just want to explain a few things. I did a slightly longer straight stitch on all of these than I would normally do, just purely because I fancied it. I could have done a zigzag, I could have done a fancy stitch. The stitching should stop it fraying all the way in, but at the end of the day, it's a flexible journal, and I like that. And I like that little bit of padding in there just to finish it off. Again, I went around here. Now, this is the reason I wanted to stop at this point is there are elements you need to consider when you're doing a fabric journal with a piece panel sewn on the front. You have to deal with the inside. Now, I chose a darker colour thread, so it wouldn't be as visible, but I'm going to cover this now with something else, and we're going to talk about it in a second. So we've got this on here. Now, the thing is that what do I actually want to put on the inside? Now, whatever I put on the inside, I could put paper on here, I could put craft card. I think because I'm actually dealing with a fabric journal, I might actually want to use this fabric on the inside of here. Now, if I do that, we're going to have frayed edges, which actually sticking out the edges of the here, I think would be really cute. I could, should I choose, pre-hem anything and put it in there, but I think I just want the torn edges. And also I'm going to sew all the way around the entire journal when that fabric's in place. The central spine will not get sewn because the signature will hold it in place as well. Now, another thing you have to consider, and we'll do this in a future journal, is if you wanted a pocket across here, you would have to sew the pocket to the fabric that is actually being stitched on here. So we'll deal with it in the future, but just be aware there are other stages you need to think about. So my question is, what do I want on the inside? I quite liked the look of that fabric I used. I could also use the hair or the bunny fabric on the inside. Don't know that that really works for me. I'm not sure whether I fancy the dots or not. So let me just grab some fabric. So I'm wondering whether this would look a little bit too much on the inside, but we are thinking spring. So it would be in there. Undecided about that one. Let's have another look, see what else I've got. I do have this, which I've been playing with the idea with for a while. And this came off, what did this come off? Can't think of the word. This came off a furniture piece. It was, I think it was off the top of an ottoman that I recycled a while ago, and I quite like the idea of this colour. And I can cut it so that it would be the perfect size for this. I think we're going to use this. And it's a little bit more robust. Now I'm going to cut it so it is actually the perfect size for this journal, although I do know that it's going to fray slightly. So as it starts to fray, you'll see the little tufts on the outside. But you know what? I'm okay with that, because for me, this is quite a rustic spring journal. I'm not trying to win awards for absolutely the most perfectly made journal out there. I'm actually just making a journal. So let's put that to one side. Let's bring this across. Now, if you're someone who's into quilting, and I also do quilt, I would normally get my rotary cutter and go up there with the rotary cutter, but I thought the majority of you are likely to have a pair of scissors, so I thought, right, let's show you how this can actually be done with just a pair of scissors. So I did have to resort to opening my other Fabri-Tac too, because my Fabri-Tac just was, basically it was empty. And if you know me, you know I want to get every last ounce out of any tube of glue, tube of paint, anything like that. So I've cut that to keep that strip. That's really handy for other things. So that now fits perfectly on there, and I think that'll make a really nice rustic look to the inside of this when you've got the pages in. And I might actually put coffee dyed paper in this one as well. I'm unsure, hadn't thought that far ahead, but we might be putting coffee dyed paper in here. So what I want to do now is the stitching is going to, is there a difference? Oh, it's a little paler, isn't it? I don't know. We'll just make our mind up later. I'm just going to come in with a bit of Fabri-Tac. Now, a couple of things I want to do is I'm going to go over where the knots were in my stitching, and I did hand tie them off. Yes, I did do some back stitching, but I did hand tie them off. I'm also going to put a little bit of a line of Fabri-Tac around the whole thing, purely just to hold it in place for me while I sew. I don't really need to be gluing it anywhere, but I'm going to just for myself. Now, because this is actually quite a coarse fabric, I'm not worried about it seeping through. I'd be very surprised if it did. And if it did, we'll just have to deal with it and show you how I do deal with it. So I'm going to smooth that down. Smooth it in the other direction as well, just so that, there you go, I've got the edges showing just subtly, and I wanted that. Now the pages I put in this could be edged with lace, they could be edged with ruffles, I don't know yet because I haven't actually worked it out. So now I'm going to go around the whole of the edge of this, and I think this time I'm just going to use a zigzag stitch. Okay, just to secure this all nice and firmly in place, and then I'll be back. So I'm going to use the same colour that I used around here, which is sort of a terracotta colour. I quite liked it. I thought it really brought the detail out. So I'm going to go around here, a small zigzag stitch, and I'll be back in a few seconds, guys. So that's all done. I've done a zigzag all the way around the edge, just a small zigzag. As you can see, it's finished this off beautifully. Any of these little threads at the top, if I pull them now, it'll fray, but it'll only fray down to the stitching. Now, it bears telling at this point, because we're always learning new things. I learned a trick off my friend Gail Augustinelli a while ago when it came to sewing in zigzags. So I'll snip that little bit off there because it was annoying me. And I just wanted to share that with you. Yeah, that's out of the way. Just wanted to share that with you because it was a really handy tip. And I'm going to draw it instead of actually sewing it. So if you do a zigzag stitch, your zigzag obviously goes like that. Now, when you come to the corner, you have to turn a corner. So if you're stitching and you finish on the left-hand side, when you turn the corner, your machine will then keep going in that direction. You'll have a nice corner there. if you do it in the opposite, so say we ended on the right, when you turn the corner, you'll have the needle will do that and you'll end up with that as the corner. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So when you're sewing, if you're watching your needle go left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, stop on the left, lift up your sewing machine foot, turn your cover around, put the foot back down, and then when you start again, it will actually give you a really nice corner. Now I'm putting book corners on mine anyway, but it is a nice way, and I'm not sure that you even be able to see it, but it is a nice way to give you a nice squared corner in that one. So thanks to Gail Augustinelli, I learnt that from you. Thank you very much. Was there anything else I needed to tell you? Also, when I start sewing around the edge of a cover, I always start here and then go all the way around that back to here, usually because I find there's less stress here because the corners and the edges are likely to be fingered and fumbled, whereas there it's not. And sometimes if I put a lace spine over my stitching, that's another layer that seals it in. So anyway, that was just that. So I'll pull another one of those threads out of there. There you go. I'm all about fraying this edge at the moment. I could become a little bit obsessed. So I like the whole frayed thing. So next thing I want to do is I want to put on the corners, and then what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to select papers and we're going to sew some papers in. You've seen me do the sewing the papers in 100 times before, but you know what? There's always someone who's watching a video for the very first time. Now the book corners I actually prefer are book corners the way you can squeeze this and close them down. Some of them will have like a flat edge there, and that doesn't mean it always fits every single thing you're putting in there, but these ones I like because you squeeze them closed and then it fits anything. And in here, if you can see it, there's a little tiny spike that actually grips as well. So I always have a bit of an insurance policy, and that is I use a little bit of Fabri-Tac, and I'm talking a little bit. This is a brand new Fabri-Tac, so it's going to go crazy on me. I just put a little bit of Fabri-Tac on the inside, just a mere smear, and then I'll come in, I'll push it all the way in. Now I'm quite strong, so I will push them down by hand. However, even after pushing them in by hand, I do use a little pair of pliers to actually cinch them closed. Now one of my followers came up with a really good trick, and I'm using a bit of this fabric, is if you put a piece of fabric over the top, as you cinch those corners in, you're less likely to mark your book corners if you've got an ornate book corner. Sometimes the pliers or the pinching action will actually mark them, but by doing it with that, you don't get any mark whatsoever. So bear with me, I'm just going to quickly put the other corners on. I like putting big book corners on purely because it just finishes it off for me. I don't know, I don't want to say it gives it authenticity because that's probably the wrong thing to say. However, it makes it feel more like a journal. And I know that if a journal is used a lot, the first place to go is actually the corners. So that's why I do what I do. So pretty much once this step is done, our journal cover is finished. Now, if you're someone who does projects and you just like making covers, then this is the point that you could stop making the cover, put it to one side, and then maybe when you get an appropriate bundle of, say, digitals or papers you want to use, then just pull out this cover and then turn it into a journal. So just because you make the cover doesn't always mean you have to make the journal. And I do know that there are some sellers on Etsy who actually, a bit of muck on that one, who will actually just make covers and sell the covers. So no, there is an option there as well. If you didn't want to make your own covers, you can buy them. Put this last one on there. Let's do this bit for you. So thank you to whoever it was who suggested using the fabric to pinch against to stop marking your corners. I've never had a problem, but you never know, someone may have, so it was really nice to be able to share that with you. And thank you to the person who put that in the comments. It's all about supporting each other, and I love that. So this is the back, this is the front. There you go. So that's our cover done. So now we need to do a bit of jiggery-pokery as far as getting pages sorted out. Now, the normal copier paper or normal paper we get here in the UK is A4 in size. Now A4 is obviously bigger than my journal. There you can see, bigger all the way around. And this may be relevant to the country you're living in as well. So what I tend to do, what I need to do is cut my papers down. So I'm going to grab myself a ruler. If I can find just a regular ruler. There you go. I've got so many rulers on the go. There you go. That's a ruler I want. So I'm going to get myself a piece of paper just because I want to do the math. Now I'm going to do it in inches, although I will try and show you conversions as well. From there to there, for me, is 10 3/4 inches, which in metric is almost 27.5 cms. Okay, so that's the side to side. The top to bottom for me is, how would I say that? Just over 8 1/4, say. And that's that version. And if I do it in centimeters, that's almost 212 millimeters. So sorry, I've mixed up my centimeters and millimeters because I don't usually do them that often. So right, so I now need to work out what my pages need to be. Well, if I've got 10 3/4 inches, I think if I round this down to 10, that means I'll have a nice bit of space either side. So if I actually take this, look at what 10 looks like, I think that gives me enough for my page to actually expand as it's folded in. So if I do 10 inches wide, oh good grief, I'm going to get stuck here, aren't I? 10 inches, let's see if I can do this in centimeters for you. Sorry guys, I'm really not a centimeter person. It's about 25.5 centimeters. Really bad at that, sorry. Let's put a line under there so I know that was the original. And then as far as the height goes, it says it's 8 1/4 high. Now, I don't mind if I went to even 8 on that, because to be honest with you, it's not going to grow up or down. So I think we're going to do 8 inches tall, which I'd say is probably 20.5. I do apologise for anyone out there who's a mathematician or knows measurements. I'm really, really bad with figures, okay? So please forgive me on that. I'm just not good at math at all. I don't know whether I've got some issues mentally as far as math goes, but even in school, I was horrible at math. So, right, so we now need to cut my papers down. Now, I'm going to do this in real time, so bear with me as far as the snipping of my guillotine goes. So I want them 10 inches wide. So let's see, I'll probably cut 2 at a time. That'll cut down. I'm doing 12 pages in this. Okay, I thought 12's quite a nice size because you can always stuff it out later. Now these pieces that come off here don't get thrown away, they get stamped on later. So that's 10 inches wide. I like to do all of the widths first and all of the heights second. Just it's the way my brain functions. You can do every individual page, height and width at the same time. I think we all have our own working ways, and this is the way that works best for me. So now you could include in this an envelope, you could put a doily, you could put anything like that. Is that torn? I felt like it was torn for a second. So 10 inches is there. Oh, there you go. There's your answer. 10 inches is 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 259 millimeters. There you go. That'll tell you what that 10 inches is. I sometimes wish in Britain they hadn't changed from inches to metric. I was in school when it happened, and I'd already done about 3 years in school, and then all of a sudden they changed to metric in one term. So I'd been learning in one, and then all of a sudden everything was changed, and all my exams were in the other, and it was like, I think it was unfair. And not just because I was getting used to inches and then changed to centimetres and millimetres, but I do think it was a bit cruel. So all of these pieces will get stamped on, whether they're numbers, they're words, whatever, those will get used. Now, what have I got to do? I've got to do 8 inches tall. So 8 inches is here, so that's 203 millimetres. So let's put that on the 8. Now, I know I'm going to be snipping off just the merest little bit of this because here in the UK, our papers are only 8 1/4 tall anyway. So I know I'm going to get just a little sliver of that off. But you know what? That works for me. I'm okay with that. Those little slivers, I am going to tell you now, I am going to throw them away because I do save a lot of things, but seriously, a 1/4 inch of coffee dyed paper is enough to drive me insane. So I'm not going to be dealing with that little bit of a piece of paper. It's never going to be used for anything. Even if I tried to put it into a snippet or something, I know it would never go in there. I think there comes a point at where you save things for the sake of saving them, but do you ever use them? No, I find that if I'm not likely to use it immediately or on my next project, what happens? It gets put in a box or put in a basket, and then I find it in a year or two's time and throw it out anyway. So I'm like, make the decision now, Griffiths, and get it sorted. So, right, down to the very last one. There you go. Let's get rid of the annoying cutting sound. It's like being in the French Revolution, isn't it? Right, I don't need this anymore, but if you did need to read it, this is what it was reading. I would say that every single cover you make will have its individual measurements, which is why I'm really trying not to dictate sizes, guys, because everyone's journal cover offers different things. So I've now got my pages. Now, when you're folding a signature, never take all your pages and fold them in one go. You'll find that the pages will end up uneven. So I like to fold them individually, and I know that a lot of other journalers do the same thing. And I'm just using my thumb to actually press them down. You can use a bone folder. I just find for me, I've got enough pressure in my thumbs that I can do it without. So, just while I'm doing this, I do want to thank everyone for your lovely comments on this series. It's nice to hear that it is reaching the newbies out there, because I've got lots of newbies coming at me going, thank you so much for doing this, it's really helpful. And I, for one, am enjoying going back to basics, to be honest. I really am. It's nice to just be doing something on the basic scale. I think sometimes when people have YouTube channels, and I'm just as bad at this as others, we develop our skills ourselves and keep progressing, but then I think a lot of the time we forget there's actually every single minute of every single day there's someone new who's discovering it for the first time, which is one of the prompts for me to do quite a lot of introduction sort of playlists. For a start, it helped me revisit some of my old skills. It also meant that I was hopefully supporting anyone out there who is starting on the journey that I also enjoy and love. So yeah, that's what it is. As years go by, I did, oh, it's a nice piece, isn't it? Maybe we'll make that the first page. As years go by, I know that I'll probably come back to the beginner stage time and time again. So I'm just going to put all of these in together and then put them into my cover to see exactly what they look like, and then we'll start the sewing in process. Now, I'm going to be doing just the basic 3 pamphlet stitch that I use probably 99% of the time, and I'm going to tie it off onto the inside of my journal, not the outside of my journal. So let's just tap that all down, make sure all the pages are even. Now, before I do anything else, I just want to see, does it fit? It fits perfectly. It's a nice little journal, just by giving myself that bit of spare room, because if we look from above, all these pages are the same width, but if you look, they actually grow or ease themselves out, and it's due to all the thicknesses of paper here. So just tap that back in. Yes, I'm liking that. A nice flexible little travel journal. Right, I just need to reach one more thing and we will start putting the sewing in. So I've got my book that I punch holes through into. I've got my signature here. I've got my little sewing kit, which is, you can pick up wax thread on the internet. You can actually pick up bookbinding kits quite inexpensively. I know that Gail Augustinelli on her website has a link through to us an inexpensive bookbinding set from Amazon. This is just a large-eyed needle. I've got an awl, that's an AWL for spelling for poking holes. I've got wax thread, and I think I want to try and use something that's going to match this a little better than I would normally do. I'm looking at this brown here thinking I'm liking this. Sorry about the crinkling, guys. Absolutely sorry about this. This kit of wax threads, let me just get rid of this a second. That's all going to drive us all insane. This pack of wax threads was actually bought as a kit on Amazon, so that's where I got this from. And all I would say is just search wax thread or bookbinding thread, anything like that will do. I've even sewn with dental floss before now. You can sew with embroidery floss. I wouldn't use normal sewing cottons because, to be honest with you, they're just not strong enough. Now I'm going to pull in a couple of the clips that I need. You can use bulldog clips, you can use these little binder clips, whichever you need to do. I like the little ones because they get less in my way. So I'm going to centerize my book, and then I'm going to clip one corner here, and then I'm going to come to the other and start the process. I want to push that in with my thumb so that I've got this as far in as I possibly can. Then I'm going to did the wrong side. I like to do the opposite corners, so I'm going to clip that one in. I then come back up to my top one and I redo it because I wanted to make sure that it's really, really cinched. Now I'm pushing my thumb into this join here, and I'm going to come back here, have another double check. That seems fine to me. Push that in, and that's it. Put the clips down because otherwise they will catch on your threads and they will drive you absolutely insane. Now, when it comes to putting a signature in, if there's anything in your signature that has a picture or writing, you need to make sure it's in the right orientation. Okay, so the writing is facing the correct direction. I haven't, this is just coffee dyed paper, so I'm not worried there. Now, you can measure. I tend to eyeball, so I'm going to close my book slightly, because by closing the book and pushing down, I'm likely to get the hole directly through the spine. So I'm going to put a hole right through the middle, or the center of the spine. Going to come down from the top. Now, I tend to use the edges of my little bulldog clips or clamps as a guide as to where I want the hole to be. It's up to you. As I said, you could come in and use a ruler and measure, say, ½ an inch down or an inch down, just so they're all symmetrical. Fully up to you. I then look from the other side. Now, I don't think I pushed that one through far enough, so I'm going to come in from the other side just to make sure the hole is large enough. I think that should be fine. I can always widen the holes out later. This is just an old book that I used to punch through in. There is a really nice and nifty gadget out there called a book cradle, and who is it? It's Amy at Crafty Cat, I believe it is, on Etsy. Crafty Cat UK? No, Crafty Cat America? I think it's Crafty Cat, can't remember. I know Gail uses one as well, and she actually sells the book cradles. She 3D prints them, I believe, upon request. So have a little search for book cradles and you'll find what I mean. So I'm going to use, I like to use doubles, so I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit extra, just for peace of mind. Where have I put the scissors? There's the scissors. So this can go back, it'll go back into the bag, but not now while you're listening, because goodness knows we've all had enough of the crinkling. So let's thread that through there. Now I bring this out. Now you don't need to do double width, double thread. That's just my OCD in panic mode, that it's not strong enough, and it is definitely strong enough. You can definitely do 1 width. I just do 2 because That's just the way my brain is wired. So I'm going to go from the center out through the central hole. There you go. I'm going to pull the thread all the way through until I have the tails where I can hold them, because eventually I'm going to go back through that hole. So I'm going to go from the outside in. So just to reiterate, I've gone from the inside through the central hole, come to the outside, and I've come back in through the bottom hole. Now I'm going to hold this thread quite taut, because what I want to do is go through this hole again, but I don't want to split the thread. I want the needle to come out the other side of the threads. If you go through the threads itself, you will never be able to tighten it. So go there, and then I can let go of that because that's done. I can then come in through the top again, pull it through, come all the way down. Now I'm going to pass this thread. Why is that stuck? Sorry, it got stuck on the wrong side. I'm going to pass this thread underneath the bottom threads, so I've got the ability to pull my thread in different directions. Now I want to make sure this is really quite nice and tight, and I'm going to tie a knot in it. At this point I want to just double check things are tight enough. Now I just tied 2 knots. Some people say you should tie left over right, then right over left, just to make sure your knot is fully secured. I've not had a problem with mine coming undone, so I don't get a bit hung up on that. Now, it depends on you whether you want to leave your threads long. You can leave your threads long, and if you leave them long, that gives you the ability to tie, tie charms on them. Or you can, the other option you can do is just tie a little tiny bow in the middle, which means that whoever ends up with the journal has the option of untying that thread and then actually putting charms on it to themselves. So let's just put my needle safely into here so I don't drop it. I don't want the dog getting it. So if I unclip my clamps, and there you go. We've got a really nice, it's really flexible, which I actually quite like. If I'm traveling, I find something like this I can just stuff into a pocket. I can even fold it over and put it in my coat pocket if I want. And that's the joy of having a flexible cover. And it's just as robust. I mean, we've got nice corners on it. It's going to take a bit of a battering. I like the fabric on the front. The more wear and tear it gets, the more character it has. So hopefully you enjoyed that. That was the Kraft-tex cover. As I said, this is the company I'm talking about. This company here. If you do a search on that spelling, you will come up with this. As I said, they do have more colours in their range. They do sell it on the roll. For me, the roll is a little bit more expensive than I want to pay. I like to buy these little packs where they're 8.5 by 11. I love that. The fact that I've then got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different colours to dip into. It gives me variety, and you can use any of this. You can use this for bookmarks. You can use it for making, well, let's have a look. I mean, they've got as journal covers or book covers. They make fabric out of it. They sew it as bags. It's the pliqué. I mean, there's lots of stuff you can do out of this. It's a really, really robust fabric, and I love it. Or product, say, because I don't know what else to call it. So hopefully you enjoyed that. That was my little Kraft-tex for this month, and hopefully you enjoyed that. So until next time, this is me saying goodbye. So I'm Ceri the Crafter. That's Ceri the Crafter. Until next month. Bye-bye now.